Welcome to Residential Tech Talks. I'm Jeremy Glowacki, Executive Editor of Residential Tech Today. On this week's podcast, Eric Harper joins us from Charlotte, North Carolina, where he is Senior Vice President at Snap One, the provider of smart living products, services, and software to professional integrators. Like many on the manufacturing side of this business, Eric started his career as a custom integrator. But his switch from CI to manufacturer back in 2001 was especially notable in that he helped launch Onkyo's high-end Integra and Integra Research audio brands into the specialty retail and CI channels. Prior to his current 12-year run at Snap, Eric also held marketing and product development roles at Sunfire and ELAN. During the recent CEDIA Expo in Dallas, Eric led my tour of the Snap One booth, where we explored a slew of new products across the control, audio, surveillance, and networking categories. And then, as the dust had just about settled following that successful event, we learned that Snap One had acquired Parasol, the 24/7 remote support service based on its own overseas platform. So needless to say, there's a lot to discuss about the always evolving Snap One brand, which is why I'd like to welcome Eric Harper to the podcast. Thanks for joining us today, Eric. How are things going in the Charlotte area?
Hey, thanks for having me. It's a great sunny day here. It doesn't feel like November in the Charlotte area. Happy voting day, by the way. I did my duty this morning. So yeah, it's a great week. Glad to be back from a few weeks of being on the road. Great seeing you in a couple of those locations, and we're looking for a strong finish to the end of the year here. So glad to be on today with you.
Well, thanks for joining us. And we did see each other again at HTSA following CEDIA. So that was in my backyard down in downtown Indianapolis. So I didn't have to travel far, fortunately, for that one. I don't remember exactly when we met, but I feel like we've always known each other in this industry. Makes sense since I launched Residential Systems, my prior publication back in 2000, which is the year right before you joined Onkyo. So I think we just have always been around each other in various roles over the years. But before we start talking about all the Snap One fun stuff and the new products, that I was researching your background and your roles, and most of them I knew, but the one thing I didn't really know much about was your transition from product engineer at the integration firm Definitive Concepts, which you were at 97 to 2001, to then helping launch a brand with the Integra and Integra Research brands. And I just wonder, how did that occur? How did you go from integrator to helping launch a brand for Onkyo?
Yeah, it's a great, so it's a walk down memory lane. So let's see if in my old age, let's see if I get it right. So I was fortunate enough to, maybe if I just jump back briefly, I was finishing up my electrical engineering degree, and when I was in college, and all my buddies were going to, grad school or going to work in a lab for a chip supplier or something. All the usual suspects. And at a career fair, I ran into a gentleman who was the father of a guy that had a few person shop in Virginia, and so, unlike my peers, I said, I'm going to take the plunge and go, sell toys for a living, smart homes. And so that's how I got into this industry. Of course, I always had a passion for electronics. I blame my parents, who bought me I think it was a 160-in-1 kit from Radio Shack as a kid. If anybody's ever played with those, it had little springs that you use to wire circuits. And I discovered if I hooked it to I think it was the wire that was like the support wire for the telephone pole, that my radio design would actually get better reception because I had a better antenna or ground or something. I didn't know what I was doing, but that started my love for electronics. But to answer your question on the shift, I distinctly remember being with my wife, driving back from seeing my folks for one holiday or another, and sort of outlined like what would my next job be and what would the perfect thing, using my skills, what my interests are, et cetera. And I kind of wrote it all down when I got home. And I forget this is in probably, I guess, early 2000s, I guess, to your point. I don't remember if it was Monster Jobs or Hot Jobs or whatever the job search of the day was, but I kind of got on there and started searching, and I found like literally the thing that I had written down and didn't know who the company was at the time. I think I was 24 years old. And long story short, a recruiter called me back, which I was shocked. I think 2 days later, I was on a plane to New Jersey, and ultimately got the gig. So I was, I think, employee number 1 or 2 that had a business card that said Integra on the business card. And so it was the beginning of a great career on the manufacturing side of the space. And kudos to, I have to name drop Mark Friedman's name from at the time New York marketing team in the area, who's the guy that gave me my first big break on the manufacturing side. So it's been a great journey since.
So you held a national product and marketing manager, and I guess those are separate roles. National product and is it one role? I guess, right?
National one role related. Yeah, I was sort of the U.S. based liaison with between Japan and engineering and product planning teams there. And yeah, they gave a 25-year-old guy who way more responsibility than he ever should have had, and we crushed it. We had a great, had a 4.5-year run or so there, and it was a lot of travel, a lot of the folks like yourself who I've met over the years and still keep in touch with today. I attribute to those early experiences.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we probably got to know each other better during your Sunfire days. So you worked with a pretty noteworthy industry brand there. I guess taking your knowledge from the Integra side of things, and then that brand was acquired by ELAN, if I'm remembering correctly. And so you went to work at another pretty big, noteworthy brand in our industry.
Yeah. It's this industry has a way of keeping you locked in, right?
Yes,
like I always joke, people that have come to obviously you mentioned earlier my long stint here at Snap One, and folks who come into the business from outside the industry, I said, well, you're doomed now. You're going to be here forever. We let you in and don't let you out. So
that's right. And you've held various roles there at Snap, and it's obviously Snap AV, Snap One nomenclature. I was looking over some research just to make sure I wasn't forgetting anything from our booth tour, and found a great preview video from CEDIA. John Heyman, who I've interviewed on this podcast, and good guy. I enjoyed hearing him sort of give a State of the Union for the industry about the housing market and how the company is really trying to create a variety of price points just to make sure that you don't just cater to the high end if there's changes in the economy, and you want to be able to provide opportunities for many different consumers who want smart home products. And I was just happy that he was overall pretty optimistic. I think it's probably the role of the CEO to put on a brave face if things are a little bit shaky or not too sure about the future. But I do think that he had some knowledge behind that too, and just making sure that you're making the right decisions. But dozens of new products at CEDIA. G. Paul Hess, your chief product officer, touched on the video some background about how you'd re-engineered OvrC in the past 3 years. Can you maybe talk about a little bit about that particular product as we get started, and then we'll get into the specific new products at CEDIA?
Sure. Yeah, you bet. For those who are unfamiliar with OvrC, it's OVRC. So a little bit of a play on letters or words there, and it's our remote management platform. So OvrC began as pretty humble beginnings of we had power products that were IP enabled called Wattbox. And, many years ago, it was very frequent that you needed to, and still today, you need to reboot products to make them come back to life. The old joke of, well, have you tried unplugging it? Yeah. To have to roll a truck to unplug something is not only is it unpleasant for both the integrator and the end customer, but it costs money in doing so. And so OvrC was sort of born from that need of a simple way to remotely diagnose and troubleshoot and fix problems. And so over the years, it's expanded into, as most of your listeners are probably aware, into a very robust, not just sort of break fix tool and remote management tool, but also it's integral into the configuration of the devices on the network. Not just Snap One devices today, but also third-party devices as well, as we've expanded with a kind of a derivative product called OvrC Pro that expands the capabilities of OvrC. And so, to your point on the sort of what have we done over the last year, 18 months, we've done a ton of re-engineering of sort of a lot of the team does behind the scenes work that they're sort of the silent champions that they don't get their day in the limelight necessarily with the new whiz bang feature ad, but man, are they important to the stability of the platform. So reducing notifications, for example, was a major effort that team undertook. We reduced, I believe, the number somewhere around 78% of errant notifications as a result of their efforts, which is fantastic. Similarly, we have been incorporating through our merger with Control4 back in 2019. We had Ahiji and Backpack that both offered similar but different sort of remote management offerings as well. And so we've brought all of those under one roof, under the Oversee flag, which has been a great effort to align the various first-party products that we offer underneath a single tool for our partners. So there's lots more to come on Oversee, some of which we can get into when we talk about what we were up to unveiling at CEDIA. But yeah, we're very excited about the platform and know that our partners, many thousands of them, use it every day. So.
Yeah, and I see you can do Wi-Fi management as well through that now. So you have guest networks and VLANs and things like that in the home that I guess the integrator, if they need to step in and do that remotely, then is that what that means, or is that through the homeowner's app?
Yeah, there's a component to on the homeowner side or the business side. We made an intentional change from Oversee Home to what we call Oversee Connect to make it more market agnostic, because it is very relevant in non-home applications.
Oh, sure.
If you're in a small business and the end customer needs a button, the bartender needs a button to push to reset TVs or a Roku or Apple TV or something like that, it's very applicable there as well. But yes, to your point on Wi-Fi management, that was a very significant recent update that we launched with our 820 series Araknis access point that launched very recently. And that gives you the ability to do full configuration of that access point within Oversee. So as I mentioned earlier, it's expanded well beyond simply being a break fix tool, which for early adopters of the platform, they probably think of it first and foremost as, it saves my bacon on Saturday when I don't want to roll a truck to Mr. and Mrs. Jones's house to go solve a problem. But it's so much more than that. And so, again, as we continue to work on new product development, new software updates, we'll continue to expand it beyond simply the break fix that I know folks know and love today.
And also, just in the broader picture, before we get to the CEDIA new products, there's mention of the operating system for Control4 and being OS 3.3. I know there's even an update beyond that. What are some of the updates and changes that happened with that particular update?
Yeah, great question. Well, we have, as those who've been paying attention to what's going on our lighting offering with Control4, there were a lot of features within OS 3.3.1 related to lighting, and I believe the version prior as well. So, things like color wheels, more intuitive access to lighting, icons that show the current color temperature of the light in question. We with 3.3.1, we included the ability to not just do sort of firmware updates in Oversee that many are familiar with, updating the firmware on a Araknis switch, for example, or a Wattbox PDU. But now you can also upgrade the controller on the job for Control4, which obviously it's a lot more than just firmware. These are large updates that our partners are used to doing from using our Composer Pro software to push those. So it's a glimpse into the future of how we're bringing our product platforms together under one kind of cohesive umbrella. So 1 + 1 + 1 = 5, or hopefully greater than 5, to make it really easy for partners in the process.
Now, one of the other big news items that occurred prior to CEDIA, and you saw a little bit of that integration, but still somewhat separate. Last year, Snap One acquired Access Networks, so you got even more coverage in that networking category in that portfolio. What was it that as that respected brand, Access Networks, brought to the Snap One family that wasn't already available with your networking solutions?
Yeah, great question. Two things sort of at the core of that. One was certainly, very capable and well respected access points, right? So the technology that's in their access points, um, the BeamFlex Plus technology for the dynamic antenna arrays and things like that, were the core of the technologies were things that we wanted in our portfolio. Um, it's my view of these kind of things is build, buy, partner, pass, right? So when you're evaluating something, you can say, well, we don't want to be in that category, so we're going to pass, or we don't want that product, so we'll pass on it. If you say you do want to be in it, then you have three choices. You can build it yourself. You can try to partner with someone like as a third party distributor, or you can look to acquire. And so we did the latter in the case of Access Networks. The second half, in addition to the product technology, equally as important was the services offering that Access has to deploy, fully configured networks, both the product suites needed, but the people as well, right? Having super knowledgeable network engineers on staff who understand the challenges that our partners face, who are a trusted resource, and ultimately who can deploy a super reliable system to the specs needed for the job, right to the partner and ultimately to the end customer. So those are sort of the two main decisions in that decision tree. It's been a great add to the portfolio, by the way. We recently launched all four or four of the main Access Networks Unleashed products on the partner portal at snapav.com.
Yeah, and that's the thing that most who are veterans of this industry know about the Snap One brand and Snap AV before that. Kind of started off as a really specific distributor of products, and then started manufacturing your own products and branded products, and acquiring major brands like Control4 and many others. And it's become as much of a manufacturer as a distributor as well. So it sometimes gets confusing when there's an acquisition and it's already been in the portfolio as a distribution product, I guess. One that comes to mind, I believe, if I'm correct, is Claire Controls. Was that one of those brands that was a product within the distribution family, but then now is actually owned by Snap One?
Yeah, that's right. So, I mentioned sort of the build, buy, partner, pass before. Sometimes they're not mutually exclusive. As an example, at Snap AV, previous to the merger with C4 and the rebrand to Snap One, we intentionally had sort of passed on control for quite some time, right? The notion was we'll be Switzerland. Myself, G. Paul, you mentioned earlier, our chief product officer, David Moore, who's our head of technology. A number of us came from previous companies that were in the control space, and so it wasn't that we weren't familiar with it. We had a lot of other things that we were focused on at the time, and so eventually we sort of came to the realization we can no longer say pass on that category, and so. At the same time, we were entering in a pretty meaningful way into adjacent markets with security and commercial, and so Claire had recently undergone some changes internally on their side, and so I guess it was early 2019 or so is when we announced that we were going to be the exclusive distributor for their products, and then of course a very short time period later, Control4 merger happened. So. Claire was still is a very great product in our portfolio, primarily focused around sort of the smart home security space. So a lot of the integrations that you kind of would expect from something like a Control4, obviously on a more entry level scale, but more importantly with the services of professional monitoring and a security panel, all integrated with Claire. So back to your previous point on some of the product premiere statements that we had leading into CEDIA, we realized that the pyramid for our industry is big, and a lot of partners focus maybe at the tip of the pyramid. Production builders may be high volume at the bottom of the pyramid, and of course, there's always a fat middle. So when you look at our current between Claire and Control4, obviously very different products for different applications. Both very relevant. When you look at our audio strategy internally, we call it "We're Pros by Audio." So to your point earlier, we were sort of single threaded with our Episode brand for a long time. Control4 acquired Triad a number of years ago to own their speaker brand as well. And now we offer, I think 4, maybe even 5 audio brands across our various storefronts, 2 of which are our own brands. The others are third parties. So again, leveraging data to inform that. We've done a bunch of survey work over the years and know that partners select multiple speaker brands for a variety of reasons. And so that's just one of several examples where we've got a kind of an evolution of our approach from being a sort of a one brand for one category back in the old days, to your point.
Yeah, and as we wrap up this section that I guess I should have called acquisitions, mergers and acquisitions, I'll just touch on the Parasol thing that I said something about in the intro. And I guess that's probably the most unsurprising acquisition in that 24/7 remote support service, that very hands-on, people-oriented service. Not the only one doing it, but it was based on the Oversee platform. So, it makes total sense that I guess Snap One would own that. Maybe just a little insight into how that changes things and what that enables that product to be able to do, maybe being under the Snap One ownership as opposed to its founders running the show.
Sure. Yeah. We've obviously been very close with the Parasol team, really since inception. Greg Simmons, who is our VP of Industry Partnerships, was one of the co-founders of Parasol. So yeah, we've been very close to what's been going on there for a number of years. For us, if when we look at our end customer or the industry's end customer satisfaction or net promoter score, it's in many cases not great, right? And we all have heard the stories of I've got A, B, or C customer that that I don't want to go back to, or they're just unsatisfied for one reason or another. There are a variety of reasons. Oftentimes it's because we're all busy, our partners are busy, and if the customer can't get a hold of them real time on a Saturday, to my point earlier, that creates friction and tension, and so Parasol really takes the load of that challenge for the partner to be able to kind of scale their support infrastructure. And ultimately, what we found is much higher net promoter scores, i.e., end customer satisfaction, for Parasol users versus non-Parasol users. And so it's a meaningful difference in end customer sat, which will drive more referrals, potentially more upgrade opportunities down the road. So it's about driving the satisfaction of the customer first and foremost, but ultimately the lifetime value to the partner, and hopefully for us long term in the process. And to your point, the fact that Oversee was such a critical component of sort of the back end that they leverage, sort of made it a really great bolt-on sort of fit to what we were doing. As we continue to evaluate, our Oversee platform, the Control4 platform, the services offering, i.e. Parasol, it was kind of the next extension of the hardware to the cloud with Oversee, and then ultimately to the service.
Well, after the break, we will continue our conversation with Eric Harper.
Do you want superior smart home automation at a great value? Shelly Wi-Fi relays by Alterco Robotics cover DC to line voltage, allowing you to control lights, outlets, appliances, garage doors, pumps, and much more. There are Shelly sensors and power measurement devices to help you measure temperature, humidity, lux, or motion, and electrical consumption from single wire to 3-phase with neutral. You can use Shelly with a licensed driver for Control4, ELAN, or other premium systems, as well as your customer's existing hub, voice assistant, or any platform that accepts REST, MQTT, or CoAP. Shelly can make IoT very easy. Available now at Blackwire, City Electric Supply, and Worthington, or at shellyusa.com.
Welcome back. We're talking with Eric Harper, Senior Vice President at Snap One. And Eric, you've gotten all the mergers, acquisitions conversation out of the way now, and we're going to move to some of that stuff that we talked about at CEDIA. And I guess it really will run down the list here. And I can't bury the lead that I just was so excited to hear about a new remote control. Everybody loves the user interface, and I just wanted to kind of run through that. It's based on the existing Neo acquisition remote product that was developed outside of Control4 and acquired by Control4. And you've created this Halo remote now that looks a bit like it. There's 2 different versions. Can you talk about what's different about it versus what you had before with Neo, and the improvements and I guess evolution of that product?
Yeah, happy to. I would say instead of based on Neo, I would say inspired by
Sure.
Neo. And the best quote that I heard at the show was one partner walked up with a big grin on his face and said, "Wow, you guys did everything I asked for. Like I couldn't ask for anything more." And that's a testament to I got one of our notebooks sitting here. We're known for carrying our notebooks around the show floor and listening attentively, and that's not just for show. No pun intended, at the trade show. But that's sort of our mantra, right? We listen hard and try to make sure that it's actionable. And so the product teams did a great job of collecting all that feedback, understanding where the pain points were, where the opportunities might be, and delivering what we think is an amazing product that got a great reception at the show. So with that being said, yes, to your point, there's what we call the Halo and then the Halo Touch. The Halo is a tactile version, no touch screen, has a large screen on it, but it's not touch. And the tactile is the version. I'm sorry, the touch is the version that does have the touch screen. And the primary differences between those two are, I heard one of our salespeople present it this way, which I thought was interesting. The non-touch is great for the channel surfer, where you want a bunch of hard buttons, and the 10 key is on there. So if you know exactly, I want to go to Fox or I want to go to this channel or the other, those are all there for you. Versus the touch, which is still has a lot of hard buttons, all the guide and things that we'd heard about from that were missing on Neo. But great for sort of your streaming aficionado. If you're using streaming services over the top, through your Roku, using the mini drivers that we have for Control4 to access, Netflix or Hulu or others, it's a great remote for that. So 2 models, touch and non-touch, full suite of backlit buttons. I know that sounds, for anyone who's been in the industry for any amount of time, it's like when you watch TV in the dark, of course you want backlit buttons. But that was something that on the Neo was more in favor of large, beautiful, larger screen, fewer buttons. So we've kind of taken the best of that was in Neo, the best of what is in sort of the SR260 from that's sort of the go-to remote for a lot of partners, is the workhorse in many cases for the line, and kind of put those together with a refreshed, much more elegant solution with Halo. A couple notables on performance. We've now support 5 gig on the Wi-Fi chip, so a more modern Wi-Fi interface that not only does it communicate on the more modern bands, but it also consumes less battery, and so you have extended battery life. I believe our teams are saying like 7 to 10 days with normal use, or if not more. I think we were getting 2 to 3 days of constant use at the show, which is great. There's voice on the remote, which if I can, I'll explain a little bit how that works. It's pretty unique. So we have an open architecture that our team has designed for voice, and when we ship Halo, we'll have 2 different or 2 drivers essentially, which are dynamic for voice. One for Apple TV and one for Xfinity. So the way that works is when you're on those sources and you send a voice command, it actually communicates that through the API with that particular source device and executes that command. I just saw a demo of this late last week for the first time, and it was an amazing thing. And the reason why the open architecture is important is that we're going to, in the future, be adding, of course, more voice assistants to the equation. Right now, it's really to address the content delivery from Apple and Xfinity, but will be expanded to more fulsome automation and control down the road. So those are a quick few highlights on the new Halo offering.
And just a selfish question from my perspective, because I have both of the remotes that you mentioned from the previous generation here, the Neo remote and then the workhorse Control4 remote. They both get used depending on which one gets picked up or out of a drawer, and if one's being finicky, the other one comes in handy. So, what is this a end user? If they wanted to have one just shipped to them directly from their dealer? Can they switch to the new remote, or is it a truck roll with the integrator to get those up and running?
No, yeah, great question. There will be a first-time user experience that the end user can do, similar to how we rolled out Neo when it was launched under the Control4 brand. That being said, it's important to note that that's all partner led. Like we're not interested in communicating to an end customer to sell them a remote. I know there's clearly and rightfully so a lot of sensitivity with some other folks who've done that in the past. So we know want the partner. Yeah, we want the partner to be a part of that. But we know that if we can take that load off, and again, not have to roll a truck, and I can sell a couple of Halos on a job, that's fantastic, right? That is something that the team will have, I believe, out of the box at ship.
Yeah, I mean, like, if just theoretically we're talking about a member of the media who might want to get one and has an integrator, but may not want to have to send them out on that kind of thing, just hypothetically. So also within the Control4 part of the family, you had a lot about the Vibrant Lighting. You mentioned lighting in the app before, and 3.3, the OS. So lighting is huge, obviously, in their category. And what is Control4's offering looking like these days, and how it matches up with what else is out there in terms of the tape lighting and tunable white and all of that fun stuff?
Yeah, we're super excited about, as you said, Vibrant, which is the Control4 branded linear lighting offering that we announced at CEDIA. Historically, Control4 it was all about control and automation of lighting. The only light that we emitted was from an LED on a dimmer or a keypad or on a product, right? We weren't in the fixture space as others may have been, and so. We're super excited to actually be in that space. We're making light, not just controlling light, and in doing so, we're able to integrate it much more natively into our solution, i.e. the OS 3.3.1 that I mentioned earlier. And as the tagline says for Vibrant, live beyond the bulb. It's about a lot more than an LED or diode that's soldered to a piece of tape. It's the solution and the overall experience we can deliver. So it's a complete lighting line, linear lighting line that includes, of course, the LED tape options, cool white, warm dimming, fully tunable, RGB, all the things you would expect. The requisite power supplies, control interfaces, things for like channels, various mounting hardware, extrudes aluminum for if you're going to mud it into a wall, or if you need something where it's going up into a soffit. So all those solutions will be available. And probably the most, to share a kind of a personal anecdote, the most exciting part of the line, at least selfishly for me, is that we have a Zigbee wireless option to control this lighting. And so many years ago in my own home, my kitchen is landlocked. I wanted to put in some over cabinet and under cabinet lighting. And I had plenty of power. Obviously, we have outlets all like all do around the counter, and so the getting the power was not an issue, but controlling it was. I could not pull a line for DMX or other types of wired control, and so I had to go the route of either a proprietary RF off Amazon kind of solution, or something that was Wi-Fi based. And needless to say, it's not worked out great. Back to our rebooting comment earlier, those things get rebooted. If I was diligent, probably daily they would need it, but it's more like once a week. So I've kind of gotten, where I don't use it anymore. And so, back to the end customer NPS, my end customer NPS on my current solution is pretty low because it doesn't work most of the time. So with Vibrant, now that we have a Zigbee option, this is going to unlock tons of upgrade opportunities, we believe, for partners to be able to go into spaces, add these fixtures, whether it's toe kicks, over cabinet or cabinet or other accent lighting, and do so in a way that is not destructive to the entire house to try to run a wire. So that's very exciting for us. And again, bringing that to life through the new OS 3.3.1 interfaces just kind of brings it all together in a way that's very easy to use for the end customer.
Well, as cool as the lighting products are tied to that, but also related to audio, the number one product, and I don't usually rank products at shows because I don't like to play favorites too much, but the product that I just love so much when I was on the booth tour with you was this Episode Radiance outdoor audio and lighting product. And it's hard for me to do it justice describing it, but it's a kind of like a bollard product, but more than that. It's versatile. It can be mounted on a wall. It can be plugged into the ground with a stake. It is light, audio combined, 70 volt. Maybe you can make it sound even cooler because it's just, without it here physically to see it, and the robust quality of it was just amazing to me, how well built it is. Talk about the idea behind that. It looks like it was maybe an acquired technology or a partnership technology with Swarm, I'm not familiar with. So how did that all come about, this Episode Radiance product?
Yeah, sure. We've been under the Episode brand in the landscape lighting space for a number of years. It's been a very successful line for us. And like many others, it's 8 ohm or 70 volt configurable, a variety of flavors. There's, kits where you can buy, kind of four speakers plus a sub. They're a la carte solutions. So it wasn't new to us. And one of the things that we found through that was, the idea of landscape lighting and the idea of landscape audio, often go together, but not really, right? Sometimes it's different trades that are doing the work. Sometimes it's one's not thought of until later. Maybe the lighting is thought of, but the speakers aren't. And so we thought there was an opportunity to, kind of reimagine, if you will, what was possible from a flexibility, time to install, all of that when it comes to outdoor spaces. And so that was sort of the inception of Radiance. On the technology front, we have been working with third party on some of that. It's patent pending technology around getting both audio and lighting over a single 2-conductor wire, which if you let that sink in for a minute, you think, well, how does that work? It must be magic. And it is magic. That's the technology. Matter of fact, the box that brings those two things together, we dub the MB1, or the Magic Box 1, because somehow it's able to bring, and you have to ask our engineers how that works, but able to bring 70 volt audio, your speaker level audio, as well as your low voltage transformer for the lighting together onto a single 2-conductor. So as far as you mentioned on the form factors, they're mini bollards. The idea of the system was to make them configurable, so you can have only a speaker or only a light or a combination of both. So it makes it so you can easily expand or remove, frankly, if you needed to, based on the needs of the application. There are stake options, there are pendant options, there are surface mount options. So, I've got a personal anecdote. A couple friends of mine that have small backyards, but really nice outdoor kitchens and kind of entertaining areas. And this is absolutely a perfect solution for them because they're not looking for concert sound. They have a neighbor that's really close. And having a solution where you can have one sort of architecture or topology for the system and have a mixture of sort of bar lights and then bar speaker and lights, and then maybe pathway lighting that's by itself, and then sitting area lighting that has lighting and a speaker. So a lot of flexibility there. To your point, it was one of the most buzzing areas of the show. We had a ton of demos going. I think their die-cast zinc is the material it's made of, and I think a stake, a speaker, and a light together weigh something like 8 pounds or something. It's it looks like something out of a Gladiator movie or something, but it's a very cool product.
Very elegant, and not to get short shrift, we've got 2 products that also were introduced, not as glamorous maybe as the 2-conductor audio and light product, but Luma's the surveillance products from Luma, the X20, I guess is the name that you use.
Yeah, X20 family. Luma is our surveillance offering. To your point, it's been around for a number of years, and this is other than the brand name, imagine the X20 is essentially a relaunch of the family of surveillance. There wasn't a single stone that was unturned on that project. The key things to point out here are smaller form factors. When you're hanging these, especially in a residential application, you want them to be discrete. So they're up to 30% smaller than previous models. Back to the power of OvrC combined with our products, the full configuration via OvrC will save, we believe, hours on the job. Our data would suggest that there's over 6 cameras per job, and if you figure it takes an hour or so to configure each camera, which I've heard in a number of partner conversations. If you can cut that down to 30 minutes, that's 3 hours of savings of time, which, let's, for round numbers, let's just use $100 an hour. That's $300. So that's a huge time savings. It can all be done remotely. And a video is worth 1,000 words. We'll share that with you too, if it's usable after the fact. But, being able to go into OvrC, see live video during the setup process, do line crossing, do your AI events, sensitivities, motion detection, all without having to ever go to a local UI. Entering a username and password, accessing an IP address of each camera, username and password, those things take a lot of time. And so OvrC, in a very positive way, shortcuts all of that to make it much, much faster. I mentioned some of the AI capabilities. We have things like human detection, vehicle detection, things like that you would expect from a modern camera. So that's new in the line. We've also, probably one of the biggest stories for our partners is completely redesigned the end customer facing app. So finding events, saving clips, sharing clips, all of that is new. And one of the, as you alluded to earlier, with sort of spanning the realm, or thinking about DIY over here and professional grade here, like how can we help our industry differentiate? And this is a good example where the app supports up to 16 channels of event playback. So imagine if you're on an iPad or on your desktop, being able to go to an event like a person being seen at the front door, and then seeing all those cameras as the person walks around your property, right? Versus one by one having to go to every camera in a more DIY type solution. So that's great. NDAA compliance, obviously, with that being a hot topic these days in the surveillance world. And then lastly, back to our ability to do tighter integration by having the product and the control solution. It's much easier to integrate within the Control4 platform. So a few quick highlights there on X20.
And last but not least, you got the Araknis AN820 wireless access point, which I guess the big key there is the Wi-Fi 6 capability. So maybe just fill us in on that, and we can kind of wrap up our virtual tour of CEDIA.
Yeah, you bet. So AN820 is our first. It's the first OvrC-enabled Wi-Fi 6 access point. It's under the Araknis brand, to your point. It's our flagship AP under the brand. You mentioned the OvrC integration earlier. So being able to do multi-WAP deployments through OvrC is much faster. So if you're hearing a theme, that's very intentional from our product team around how do we make it easier to drive faster deployments through our integrators to their end customers, because we know we're capacity constrained as an industry. Labor is not free, and it's also not infinite, right? So we're trying to make things easier upstream so that our partners have more capacity to do more projects. And so that the A20 makes big strides there with OvrC. And right after CEDIA, just a +1 on this, we introduced our 520 as well. So this is it's oncoming soon. It'll be shipping shortly, but that's sort of our entry level Wi-Fi 6 solution that pairs with the 820. That's the more enterprise product.
And Eric, as we wrap up, I don't want to turn this into any kind of a negative spin at the very end of a great conversation, but obviously supply chain has been a big, challenge for everybody in all different industries. How are things looking in terms of your products getting to your partners, aka the integrators, and are you seeing things kind of smooth out at all in terms of supply chain?
Yeah, I'd say this is a question where there's no place I'd rather be than Snap One, because our team has done an amazing job on navigating supply chain. Our numbers we're in the 90+% in stock across all SKUs across our network, which, at face value, that sounds great. I know for your listeners who have been impacted by a SKU here or there, not all SKUs are created equal. Being out of a connector is different than being out of a centralized lighting product, right? So we understand that, but it is a great story for us. Again, I can't give enough kudos to our supply chain and operations teams who have just done yeoman's work in making sure that we've navigated that. And that's part of what we as a company that has some scale, at least for our small industry relative to others. We were really able to lean in with our suppliers and make sure that we, whenever possible, could either get to the front of the line. In many cases, pay more. Something called PPV, or purchase price variance, is something that companies in our space and all over the world are very much paying attention to as things have gotten more expensive as the supply has dried up. So yeah, we're I'd say in hindsight, I still give us A++ grade on how the team has managed that. Hopefully your listeners will agree. Not that we didn't have our hiccups here and there, but I think by and large, we managed through it with flying colors. And as far as outlook goes, I guess you could maybe throw a dart. Who knows where the world's headed? But I think we would say that things are continue to progress as we talk to partners around their inventory levels and kind of what are they seeing overall. It feels like the general consensus is that things have gotten better. Looking at AV receivers, for example, which were impossible to get for a long time, are now. I talked to a gentleman last week who said he had 9 that just showed up and he'd forgotten that it had an open order, right? So one example of I think things moving in the right direction. So certainly I'm optimistic for where we're headed, and I'm also hopeful and optimistic for where what the industry can expect overall as well.
Well, and I had no idea going into CEDIA Expo how much new product conversation there would be as companies just tried to get through a rough couple of years in terms of getting current product out the door. So you see new products introduced, and I would imagine that you're not introducing things that you don't plan on shipping fairly soon. So ship dates on all the things we talked about pretty much by the end of the year, or what's the plan for those?
Yeah, we usually, by the end of the year is what we shoot for. Some of these are into January. But yeah, we don't like showing vaporware. We want to make sure that if we're showing it, it's ready to go, at the show or soon thereafter. So yeah.
Well, I can't wait to try out the new remote when it's ready, and I will not take somebody else's that needs it, the important customers out there. But I do look forward to experiencing that as a pretty happy quote unquote Control4 customer, Snap One customer, I guess, broadly speaking. So looking forward to that, and I'm sure that your partners out there are excited about all the new stuff. So thanks so much for giving us a virtual taste of what we saw at CEDIA.
Absolutely. Thanks for the time, Jeremy.
Eric Harper is Senior Vice President at Snap One. You can learn more about Snap One's extensive collection of smart home solutions for homes and businesses at snapone.com. And that wraps up today's show. Thank you to Alan Tozinski for producing and editing this episode. If you're new to Residential Tech Talks, please subscribe to the weekly podcast on your preferred platform and consider rating us or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Also, check out the latest residential tech news at the magazine's website, restechtoday.com, where you can also subscribe to the print or digital magazine and to our Tuesday and Friday email newsletters. Until next time, please stay safe, stay inspired, and let us know if you have a great story to tell.
Residential Tech Talk, lighting specialist to architect, to smart home or smart house.